Well, good day, everyone. My name is Jack Miller. I'm the former president of Pacific College of Health and Science. I'm currently the chairman of the board of the college. I retired from the presidency in November of 2020 in order to have more time to surf. So you'll understand what a treat it is to have today's guest on this podcast. By now, I'm sure most of you are aware of the amazing life and story of Bethany Hamilton. In 2003, at the age of 13, she survived a tiger shark attack, but lost her left arm. However, 1 month after the attack, Bethany returned to surfing and within 2 years had won her first national surfing title. It's an amazing story. I encourage those of you who have not read her autobiography or seen the feature film Soul Surfer to check them out. Bethany was also the subject of a beautifully done 2018 documentary called Bethany Hamilton, Unstoppable, in which she quite openly and honestly discusses how marriage and motherhood have affected her professional surfing career. It's really well worth seeing. And I have to say personally, one of the things that moved me the most was my brief participation this year in her charitable organization, Beautifully Flawed. Beautifully Flawed is a retreat designed for young women ages 14 to 25, although I did see some guys there who have experienced traumatic limb loss. This program includes guest speakers, practical health and wellness tips, specifically account for limb loss, postural training, and surf lessons. So last spring in San Diego, it was my privilege to have Pacific College provide acupuncture for the participants. And I also stopped by the beach to watch the surfing lessons. And we were fortunate to have a pretty large swell that week, but I didn't see it slow anyone down at the event. It was really amazing, super inspiring. I think there are videos and photos of the event on Pacific's Instagram page, and I'm sure on Bethany's site, so you should check them out. Bethany, it's really a pleasure to have you join us today. I have to say, I'm really tempted to just spend the next hour talking surfing with you. But interest of our general audience, we should probably broaden the conversation a bit, but we may occasionally digress. As I said in my intro, millions of people are familiar with your life story through the books, movies, and your public speaking. Let's start with the concept of being unstoppable, which I think is a really important concept, maybe the most important concept in the field of peak performance. And while you experience a truly traumatic stopping something that happens many, many times every day in every challenging endeavor. So, should I do one more push-up or stop, right? So maybe you could tell us a little bit about the principles of your Unstoppable program and, what advice you give to people who really want to be unstoppable in achieving their goals.
Yeah, no, it's been such a wild journey my whole life, just living life differently than most and pursuing my passions relentlessly and overcoming the challenges along the way and adapting, and all of that to me is living unstoppable. And being unstoppable isn't about being perfect and having it together at every minute of every day, but it's being willing to get back on your board when you fall off. And, I think there's so many challenges coming our way in life. And to think that we're not going to have challenge is setting ourselves up for a surprise, because we're all going to face challenges. And so being willing to recognize that and be ready for that and setting ourselves up to succeed and push through some of the pain points. And so, it's been really fun kind of thinking through, like, what are the things that have helped me continually get back on my board? And a lot of that is just simply like adapting, but honing in on my mindset, my health and nutrition, my community, being able to forgive and let go, being, checking in with where I place my identity, and all these different things that, when we're facing challenge, maybe some areas are being more attacked than others. And so being willing to, or being able to recognize what it is that we need in that moment, whether it's our community or our health and nutrition or our
Right.
faith in God. For me, my faith in God has been
Mhm.
really key. And so there's so many different like avenues in life that can help us push through major challenges and keep going.
Yeah. I mean, I can't help but think like when you were, especially as an adolescent at 13, when you realized you suffered a traumatic loss and that was going to definitely affect what you thought were your goals, right? Do you remember a time at that point where you just, what did you think? Did you go, okay, this is it, it's over? Or was there ever a time where you thought that? And then, if so, how did you, get to the next place where you could become unstoppable?
Yeah, well, I remember waking up in the hospital and having this like dawning moment of looking down and realizing my arm is gone and
Yeah.
feeling like my whole future is gone. And even though I was 13, and yeah, you could think like, oh, 13-year-old, she has big dreams, but like, who knows if she would have ever actually reached her dreams. But I
Right.
had huge aspirations to be the
Yeah.
best female surfer in the world. And I had a lot of, I had the talent, the support, and the drive to do that. And
Mhm.
so losing my arm was just kind of like the little thing in the bigger picture. Like I felt like I had
Uh,
lost surfing, my dreams, my
right.
goals. I didn't know what my future held. I felt like life was upside down.
Right.
And I felt just kind of maybe a bit of fear of, losing all that and
Sure.
fear of sharks and just all these different things. But all it took was just getting a little hint of hope. I had a
Uh,
friend by the name of Mike Coots come into the
uh,
hospital and visit me. And within a week of losing my arm, I already had my sights set on trying surfing. I didn't know if I'd be able to
uh,
do it, but I was determined to get out there and try. And so
yeah.
less than a month later, as soon as my wound had healed up enough to get into
Sure.
the ocean, I got out there and charged, and I popped up
Yeah.
on my third wave, rode it
Right.
all the way to the beach, and that was just the start of things. And then little did I know where I would go with
Yeah.
surfing. I wasn't like in that moment thinking I'm going to be the best female surfer in the world anyway. I was just like, I'm so stoked to be out
Yeah.
here
I can surf
living my
again.
dream, living my passion, and
Yeah.
overcoming what felt like major odds against me.
What was it that Mike said or did? I mean, what did he do that gave you that hope?
Yeah, well, Mike, he had lost his leg to a shark several years before myself, and he actually learned how to surf with one leg. So
Uh,
he was a bodyboarder beforehand, and then he
uh,
learned how to surf. And so
wow.
he had gone surfing the morning before visiting me, and he practiced paddling around with one arm and like experimented with popping up. And he's
Uh,
like, "Hey, I think you can do it. I think it's totally possible." And just knowing that he was surfing with one leg was huge. And so,
uh,
in my small little community, I don't know if I had ever seen anyone besides Mike with limb difference. So
yeah.
that was like super foreign to me.
Sure.
And I never even like thought of that sort of scenario. And so all of a sudden I went into like adapting mindset and realizing that, okay, I'm going to have to do things differently. It doesn't mean I can't do it, but we're going to have to make some tweaks and adjustments. So once
Right.
I got on my board, it was just the art of adapting. And I already understood reading the ocean and how to catch waves, which
Sure.
is half the game.
Yeah,
And
for
then
sure.
now it was just relearning how to do things with one arm. So I would say the first year was very like trial and error and learning, a lot of falling, a lot of frustration, a lot of discouragement, but like moments of highs and peaks and successes and just getting my stoke back.
Yeah.
And the cool thing about the ocean is it wasn't going to be nicer on me than it was on my peers. So I wasn't being babied. I wasn't being like treated differently. I'm in the ocean and it's a level playing field. And I think that taught me a lot of resiliency. And so I love how physical translates to the mental. And for me, being in the ocean was, so much of it's physical, but then a lot of it is mental.
Oh,
And
yeah.
sometimes it feels like the ocean is just against you and trying to send you back to the beach, and you just have to push through and endure the muscle pain, the mental pain, the frustration, in hopes of getting like another great wave. And then when you get that great wave, you're like, okay, I can endure again because that was
Yeah.
awesome. So I think like there's just such a love inside of me for that challenge and that
Yeah.
level playing field and just trying to be my personal best.
Mhm.
And I guess that drive and determination got me even further than I dreamed that I would. And
Sure.
still to this day, as a mom of three, I'm still trying to push it in the ocean
Yeah,
and
that's awesome.
surf my best and have a blast out there.
Yeah, I think you made a really important point about personal best, right? Because like not everyone can expect to be a world champion. Yeah, whatever, whether they're a weekend warrior, I'm never going to make the world tour, right? But I have my own goals, and that's the thing to set and to try to achieve. That surfing is kind of a really perfect metaphor kind of for life in general, and that you really do have to face fear. And it's created, I mean, it's often very real. There's a reason to really be afraid, right? But so often also we're afraid of things that aren't reasonable, right? They say that public speaking is one of the things that people are most afraid of, but you're not going to drown if you're public speaking. You may feel like it. And I guess that's kind of part of the experience, of fear. You feel like you're drowning or you feel like you're in danger when you may not be. And so, you've surfed Jaws, right? And for people in our audience who don't know about Jaws or Piayi on the North Shore of Maui, it's a place where waves are bigger than you can imagine. We don't have to even say how big, just like think how big they are and then double it. So, how do you had to be afraid, or you had to experience fear when one of your goals was to surf Jaws. I mean, how did you work through that with your training and your mindset? How did you get to that place where you go, I can do this?
Yeah. No, I definitely had to work through a lot of fears, and continually I'm working through fears. I'd say, especially my 13-year-old self,
Yeah.
I had fears that I wouldn't be able to do it. I wouldn't be able to surf and pop up on my board. But I was willing to try, and I was willing to try again. And even when things were really hard, continually keep trying. And I think we have to recognize our fears and not let them hold us back from trying. Just being willing to put ourselves out there and almost expect yourself to fall and not have
Huh.
amazing success every
Yeah.
time.
Yeah. Good
The best
point.
athletes in the world have a
Right.
lot of failures along the
Sure.
way. And so just
Right.
knowing that you're not always gonna rock it and be perfect at it.
Right.
And
Yeah.
even this last couple of months, I've had some of the scariest surfs of my life, where the
Really.
fear was deep. And it
Uh,
was, yeah, at one point I was like, I don't know if I want to do this. But then I ended up catching one of my best waves ever, like right
where
after that feeling. So
where was that?
that was at Pipeline on the North Shore of
Sure.
Oahu. And that is one of the heaviest waves in the world. And even the best surfers in the world, like Kelly Slater says, he's really scared of that wave. And
Yeah.
so it's kind of like a weird place or
Yeah.
environment to overcome your fears, because it
Sure.
genuinely is really scary. It's not something you're just making up in your head. But
Yeah.
it's also exhilarating and
Yeah.
exciting and incredible. And so for me, I try to recognize the fear and not like ignore it, but also not let it overtake me and just inhibit me. And sometimes I think too, like doing something with a friend, like
Uh,
a lot of my childhood fears were conquered with a buddy. And
right.
even as an adult, sometimes it's just nice to have a friend to like kind of conquer your fears together. And
Sure.
I think when the fears come around, though, like maybe not ignoring them, but knowing that they're there, but still being willing to try and overcome them. And work hard at them and set yourself up for success. Like, I think some of my scariest times in the ocean, I can take a lot of confidence in my preparation for those moments. So I know that I can hold my breath really well. I know that I'm strong. I know that I have good intuition in the ocean. And so if things go wrong, I'm gonna be able to adapt in that moment and figure out my way out of
Right.
that situation.
Yeah.
And then if it's really big too, I have a safety team nearby to, if the worst case scenario happens, they'll come and
Right.
get me.
So,
So yeah, it's
so you're
just,
in that situation. I was going to go ahead.
I think just preparing for those moments and not being willing to try and not like letting them build up in our head greater than they are.
Right. So you're there, it's really big, and you're saying to yourself, you recognize I'm afraid, right? And so do you have like things you say to yourself, or do you kind of go through like, I've worked out hard, I can hold my breath a long time? I mean, are there things that you say, or do you just go, come on, get with it? Or
I think it's a little bit of the come on, get with it.
go for it.
And it's also like, I mean, surfing pipeline was an opportunity that I had never received in that capacity. It was huge pipeline and nobody out. And I had this little window of time to surf it by myself, basically.
Wow. How did you
And
arrange
so
that?
even though I was scared, it was like something I dreamed of for years.
Yeah.
And I wasn't going to let that fear hold me back from this incredible moment that I've been waiting for like what felt like a decade.
I bet.
And so I just kind of like pulled up the bootstraps and decided to at least paddle out and put myself in position. Doesn't mean I had to go, but I was willing to just get out there. But then once I was there, I was like, oh yeah, I do want this.
I think that's an important principle in overcoming fear and getting to our goals, is sort of the incrementalism, right? I'm going to just paddle out, right? I'm not committing to going, but I'm going to see how it looks. I'm going to make sure, and then, so, don't freak yourself out completely all at once, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Wow. How did you, I got to ask, as a surfer, how did you manage to be by yourself at Pipeline? For people who don't know, usually there's like 75 or 100 guys out there at once.
Yeah, so Pipeline's a crazy wave. It usually has like the best of the best world surfers, minimum like 50 guys. So that's like half the challenge. Plus the wave is incredibly intimidating and technical. So there was an event called the Backdoor Shootout, and it's a event they do every year. And Hawaii passed a law that every event has to have a women's division. So this was the first year they ever did a women's division in this event, and I got called up last minute to participate. And so like literally the day before the event started, I was on Kauai. I packed up my bag and went to Oahu, and it was me and 3 other girls out there, just putting our all and going for it. And it was not easy. I had some wipeouts and I also had some great ones, and it was a total adventure and super scary, but fun and exhilarating and just like amazing.
Really? I got to digress one more time into Surf Geek. So at Pipeline, is the fear the pounding more than the hold down?
Yeah, I think Pipeline is just, it's both of those probably, because it's pretty shallow and you can get held down for a while. And like a lot of guys have like hit the bottom. So I wore a helmet out there just to protect my head, especially because it was really big. I don't always surf in a helmet, but in certain conditions, I think it's a good idea, just because all it takes is one bad wipeout to hit the reef. And it was crazy because one of my wipeouts, my board actually hit the reef, which is crazy because the board's so buoyant. So for the board to penetrate underwater and slam the reef, I had like a chunk of reef in my surfboard. So that was pretty gnarly. And but I'm glad it was my board and not my body.
Yeah, no kidding. Well, Dustin, who a friend come in, and we'll talk a little bit more about Dustin soon. when he mentioned to me he'd rather surf 20-foot cloud break than pipeline, I went, oh, that means pipeline is, I mean, because for those people who don't know, when you look at pipeline, it's deceiving. It looks pretty. Right?
It is really beautiful, but then
Yeah.
you see like some of the best men surfers in the world wiping out there, then you know it's hard.
Absolutely. So we talked a little bit about, the ability to hold breath a long time. What kind of breath training do you do?
Yeah, so I haven't really been putting too much time into my breath holding, actually. But lately, I've been doing a little exercise out when I'm surfing, like, or when I'm coming in from surfing. A lot of the breaks I surf, it's like a quarter mile or half a
Long
mile paddle out.
Yeah.
And so when I'm paddling in, I'll just try to paddle like 20 strokes with holding my breath while I'm doing it.
Yeah.
And just try to keep upping that. So it started off with 10 strokes, like full blown paddling as hard as I can and kicking while holding my breath, and then trying to up my stroke number. So a lot of my cross training is multitasking because I have 3 children and I don't have all the time in the world to do all the things.
Well, that's a workout right there for most people.
Yeah. So I'll like finish my surf with like a power paddle in and holding my breath. And I try to only do that if I have a friend like paddling in somewhere nearby, because breath holding can be dangerous in that
if you black out,
you can pass out. So it's usually if I know someone's within the vicinity and like within like, paddling distance to come and grab me, but I wouldn't push it that hard where I'm gonna like actually pass out. I more just push it till I feel my ribs doing the convulsing. So if you know anything about breath holding, like your ribs start to kind of hyperventilate or something, but then it calms down after a while. So, if you're getting to that point, you're like, okay, well, I probably have another minute or two beyond that.
Yeah. Or 10 seconds for normal people.
Well, it's all in the mind, right?
Yeah, it is, especially
if you feel your ribs doing that, in actuality, you could go another minute or two.
Yeah.
But usually when we feel that, we're like, okay, I'm done.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, the free divers say that, the spleen holds a lot of oxygenated blood. And when it compresses, it releases that to your system. And so you feel great, but they learn to recognize that's actually it. You have no more left. So
so I've done like a breath holding class with a professional free diver a while back, and during that window of time, I had my breath hold was over 4 minutes, but that's just static. So you're just like laying there holding your calm. So when I'm surfing, like usually the worst wipeouts are not more than 30 seconds. They're more closer to like 3 to 10 seconds. 10 seconds is like a bad hold down.
That's long.
And when you're underwater, it feels like a minute long.
I know.
So just knowing that, like, okay, I know I can hold my breath brings a lot of mental confidence. And then you can also find your calm in the ocean underwater when you're being like kind of ragdolled. And you can be like, okay, well, even though this is a little crazy, I know that I have a strong breath hold. Yeah,
you're right. Especially here in Southern California, a long hold down would be like 5 seconds. So 10 would be like, oh, this is getting old.
Well, it's like, and if you're being held under for that long, what the fear becomes that you're going to come up and like there's another wave,
right?
So usually the wave will let you up with enough time to get a breath or two before the next wave if it's really crazy out there. But it's just, I think like with anything in life, you can prepare for crazy, chaotic moments. And and when it comes to surfing, like breath holding and physical fitness and things like that can prepare you to be more confident and less fearful.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, Dustin had mentioned that you should be able to hold your breath about 25% of the time that you can from a resting hold. Like, so if you could hold your breath for 4 minutes, that after exertion, you should still be able to hold your breath for a minute. That's a long time.
Yeah, that's really long. So
Yeah,
that's
for
like
sure.
a good goal to kind of get.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can kind of know your
Yeah.
goal points. So yeah, sometimes I'll just do the like workout paddling, and that's like my breath holding training, because I definitely don't have like a beautiful morning routine. My routine is wake up because the children
Yeah,
woke me
right.
up and get food in their belly, and then like do all the mothering things, and eventually
Right.
try to get to the ocean.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, it's only another 16, 18 years and you'll have your time back to yourself.
No, but I love it. I love my morning
Yeah.
routines.
Yeah.
Mornings, some of my favorite time with my
Oh,
children, and
that's
just
great.
making them nutritious food
Uh,
and saying good morning and
yeah.
snuggles. And they're just such a joy, and they bring me so much. They're just such a blessing.
Oh, absolutely. The happiest day of my life was watching my son being born. Um, I mentioned in the introduction how openly you talked about your first child during the documentary. And that was seemed like a potential stop for you. You know, you were like wondering, well, how am I going to be able to surf as a mother? You weren't expecting to be pregnant. And so, you know, what was going through your mind at that time? And, you know, I suppose once you had it, that's Tobias,
Yeah,
number one.
Tobias.
Then you saw that you could get back in the water and stuff. But I mean, were you very nervous at that time that your career would be over? You'd only be a mother at that time?
Yeah, so just to give everyone a little bit of context, I have a documentary named Bethany Hamilton, Unstoppable, and it captures my life from childhood to motherhood. And the funny thing is, when I first started to make this documentary, it was meant to be a 10-minute short film of me just like pushing women surfing and like thriving in all the different environments of the ocean, like big waves, small waves, competitive, barrel riding, aerials.
Yeah.
So very like just a beautiful piece of me just ripping it, because I would continually get like, oh, you're that Bethany girl. Do you still surf? And I was like, yes, I surf. And I'm like, arguably known as one of the better female surfers in the world. And so we kind of just wanted to create a piece to just share that aspect of my life. But then, long story short, so much had happened. And the film director at the time was like, hey, can I just make a little documentary alongside of the short piece? And I was like, yeah, just do whatever you want. And we had built a lot of trust. So I was like, he's going to do a great job, whatever we work on. And yeah, then a lot had happened, and I had conceived my first son within the first like 6 months of filming, and we had planned to film for a couple of years. And it was like, should we even keep doing this documentary? Like, I felt like everything was like chaotic, because that was not part of the plan.
Yeah, new plan.
And I was anti like birth control, so I was just trying to family plan method, and I do believe in that method when done properly, but I also recognize that we were traveling, and when you travel, it makes it really hard to predict your cycle
Yeah.
and be aware of like the women cycles that are going on. So it was just like I did pretty good for a year, and then I got pregnant. And then long story short, once I met my little guy, it was the best moment of my life, and
Sure.
I didn't want it any other way. And
Yeah.
my husband was down to just support me in my journey and let me just check off my boxes in my sport, because he knows that
Yeah.
being a professional athlete only lasts so long, and there was a lot of things I hadn't accomplished yet. And so he's like, let's just do this. I'll be full daddy mode and support you, and we'll just travel together.
Yeah.
So we just brought little Tobias along for the ride, and my little guy had his first birthday in Fiji, and I literally went around the world a couple of times already. And he got to see his mama thrive in some competitive events, and just allow me to kind of pursue my passion and ambition in my sport. And so it was really awesome. And in hindsight, I really always wanted to be a younger mom. I didn't want to have children when I got old older,
Yeah.
just for health reasons.
Sure.
And so even though that wasn't my plan in that moment, I'm so grateful that that's when I had my first son. And then now I have 3 boys.
Two more.
And
Yeah.
both my husband and I really wanted a large family. I was in a family of 5. He was in a family of 6. So we're doing what we wanted to do. And meanwhile, just trying to maintain health and my bounce back. And not that it's just a bounce back. It's really challenging. And
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, it's been such a cool journey though. And I feel like motherhood has challenged me more than anything in my journey to just figure out my health and take care of myself so
Sure.
that I can better serve my family. And it's just been a really cool journey of learning and growing in different areas and kind of being honest with myself towards my health and not like beating around kind of symptoms or red flags that I was having and trying to problem solve the overall picture. So it's been awesome just to like learn along the way and enjoy my family.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've mentioned Dr. Dustin Dilberg a couple times. I'm proud to say that Dustin is a graduate of Pacific College, and we're so proud of him. And he's featured in your movie, in the documentary. And when did you start working with Dustin in a therapeutic relationship?
Yeah, Dustin is an amazing human, and he
Absolutely.
just had his first child. So that's
Yep.
been really cool to see him enter into fatherhood because he's such an amazing guy and
Yeah.
going to be an incredible dad. So I've known him now for about like 12, 15 years. And when I first met him, I was actually working with his dad, who's also in the integrative health sphere.
Yeah.
And I had first done a live blood analysis and kind of went on a journey to cleanse my blood and my overall body from a lot of toxins, parasites, lack of proper flow in my system. And that was only at 18 years old. So it's pretty incredible to see how dirty my blood was and then work to clean it. And by cleaning your blood, you're cleaning your whole body. So that was really awesome to learn from Dustin's dad, Carrie, in that sphere. And then Carrie also does spinal alignment posture therapy. And that's where I met Dustin. And Dustin started working with me to support me with posture and body alignment. And being an athlete with one arm, I'm doing so much on the one side. And so trying to preserve my longevity and keep my spine from twisting too much. And I must say, it is the most challenging thing physically, I think, that I have to do because it requires a lot of time and dedication, and it's just been really nice to have Dustin's support in that area and just learn from him and get bounce ideas off him. And we've done a lot of Vygotsky training, which I have a huge respect for that method. And it's crazy, some of the moves, like if I'm having pain, I can go and do a few moves and relieve a lot of that pain almost instant. And so a lot of what I do is to just support my body in keeping it more aligned and posturally healthy. And Dustin has been so key in that. And he's introduced me to things like foundation training and a few other things I've kind of come across on my own have been like hypopressive breathing to restore my pelvic floor after having children. And I think foundation also helps with that. And just kind of, I love that Dustin and also his dad, Carrie Dilberg, they both approach health with like, it's so much more than just nutrition and exercise, but it's our environment, it's our body alignment, it's all these different stressors that we face in life and working on all of them and really honing in on your health as a whole versus just one little sphere.
Talking about sort of the holistic approach to health, are you doing supplements or are you doing more just like a holistic diet, eating, good quality foods, or do you take vitamins, minerals, and things like that?
Yeah. So with diet, I've kind of experimented with a few different things, and currently I'm focused primarily on my diet. So I'm not a vegetarian. I eat a lot of like animal products. So
Mhm.
grass-fed and finished beefs, grass-fed and finished dairy. I get raw dairy from my brother, who's a dairy farmer.
Oh,
So I
nice.
know where my milk's coming from,
Yeah.
which is super cool. And I've even met his cows, and they're the happiest cows on the planet. So yeah, I eat like a lot of liver and different organ meats. I drink bone broth just about every
Mhm.
day. And these things have drastically helped my health improve. And I eat a lot of like potatoes and fruit and squashes, and eat a bit of sprouted and sourdough sort of grains, and just kind of try to balance it all out. And
Mhm.
then I do a little supplements. I do like vitamin K. I take magnesium. Actually, my husband and I made our own like magnesium formula.
Oh, really?
And so we have like, it's like potassium, magnesium, and a few other things kind of
Uh-huh.
mixed in. And we just add it into a water and sip it every night before bed. And
Helps you sleep.
one thing that I've been really challenged in the health sphere is just becoming your own problem solver. Like, even if you have all the
Yeah.
support in the world, only you can be in tune with your health. You are
Mm.
with yourself all day, every day. So, are you sleeping well?
Yeah.
How's your energy throughout the
Mhm.
day? Do you wake up with great energy? Do you find yourself relying on coffee for energy or
Right.
caffeine?
Right.
When you start to get more honest with yourself, you're able to then um, act accordingly. So I would say
Mhm.
about 2 years ago, my sleep went out the window. I was super easily agitated. I was just having a lot of crashes throughout the day. And I think
Mhm.
ultimately, like, it kind of comes back to not eating enough food. So I probably eat at least 3,000 calories a day now.
Wow.
And I'm like eating more than I ever have, and I feel way better. And I
Mhm.
also am maintaining weight a lot easier. So I think just when you're eating the right types of foods and the right
Sure.
amounts, your body will be really happy with with you, and give you what it needs. And I'm doing a lot. I'm breastfeeding full
Yeah.
time, a lot of
Right.
breast milk. I'm working out. I'm
Mhm.
surfing. I'm
Yeah.
chasing children. So I recognize that I need more, and I wasn't
Definitely.
eating enough before. And so
Yeah.
it's been a really cool shift to be comfortable with eating a lot of food and
Right.
nourishing myself so that I have enough energy to like do all the things I want to do and stay
Right.
ambitious and keep pursuing life relentlessly. And I recognize that when I wasn't eating enough, my ambition and energy levels were hugely affecting, like, I didn't want to go surf necessarily. I
Right.
would like
Right.
sometimes feel like low
Mhm.
motivation. And so when we can kind of check off some of the boxes that we can kind of somewhat control, we're able to like just be more resilient. So it's been nice to kind of just recognize and like just be aware of your body and the signs, and not just like put band-aids on them, like drinking coffee when you have
Yeah.
low energy, but
Right.
rather nourishing yourself. And I do
Yeah.
drink coffee. I love coffee, but I usually drink it after I've eaten like a good meal.
Mhm.
And then I don't ever drink it on an empty tummy, and I drink it more for just pleasure because it's delicious.
Yeah. Well, that's a really, I think, insightful response to the question, to be tuned into yourself and also related to your goals, right? If your goals were sedentary, you might have a very different diet. But in your case, both as a breastfeeding mother and someone who's really active athletically, you can't go by just, oh, the government statistics show I should be taking, 1,800 to 2,000 calories. That's just not going to get it done, right? So when you hear,
Yeah, and
yeah,
that was like a challenge. Like I don't think I realized how much I was actually eating. And then now that I'm eating more, I'm like, whoa, my energy is amazing.
feel
I'm
better.
sleeping good
Yeah.
at night, and I'm ready to
Yeah.
like charge the day. And I don't feel like restricted. And I also feel like I can do this for the long haul. Like, I don't want to do something that's going to set me up to fail. Like,
Mhm.
very restrictive diets can really come back to like
Right.
bite you in the butt, or like you just kind of fizzle out. So finding something that works for you and gives you the energy and fuel and nutrition that you need, but also is something you can do for a long period of time.
I think that's an incredibly important point. I mean, you see so many athletes that will either do, really specific supplementation or, extreme diets in terms of protein intake, calorie intake. And that may be fine while they're, competing as a power lifter, let's say, but, they need to be able to adjust that diet back to something that's going to be a little bit more what we might call normal as their activity changes. So,
Yeah, and even with myself, I've noticed I'm able to maintain my muscle mass better, and I also
mhm,
bounce back faster after big, long surf days. Like,
sure.
I had some crazy days competing, and I talked to one of my younger friends, and she was like, I was so thrashed the next day, I just couldn't do anything. And I remember feeling like I was ready to go
You
surf
go.
another
Yeah.
long day of surf. And so being like 32 years old and being able to keep up with my
Yeah.
younger peers is
Yeah.
pretty cool.
That's really cool.
And I'm also working out a lot less because I
Mm,
just don't have the time. So
right.
I try to maximize my workouts, and but I feel like my nutrition supporting me a little better so that I can maintain my muscle and still get lots of surf time in, which is my priority when it comes
Yeah,
to
sure.
the physical side, and then doing more like body care and Egoscue sort of things that Dustin has taught me.
Right. Right.
um, and it's nice to kind of just be at this point where I don't have to worry about things and I can be more confident in my decisions, so that keeping up with all the things, my family and surfing and
Yeah.
jumping on a podcast or something like
Right.
that, and then
Yeah.
throwing travel into the mix sometimes, it's
Yeah.
nice to just feel like I'm supporting myself the way that I.
Yeah. So what are your surf goals? I mean, you've really, I mean, for most people who say you've pretty much done it all. What's next for you? What haven't you done? I mean, both in terms of maybe competition or even places that you might want to surf that you haven't before, whether it's, just really good waves, not necessarily really big waves. I mean, what's next?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, just to have fun. I have done so much and have worked so hard, and I really just still have the fun factor as my priority in the
Right.
ocean.
Yeah.
And so, like, the last couple of days, I got to surf some big waves here at home, and that was
Mhm.
really fun. I got some really good ones. And I kind of also, like, in January, I got last minute call ups to compete in events that I wasn't necessarily like, I didn't have the points to get
Uh-huh.
into them
To
because
qualify.
I'm
Yeah.
not focused on competition full
Right.
time. And so that
Mhm.
was really fun. And I felt really ready and I rocked it in some of my
All right.
heats. So
All
I,
right.
I love competing, and I'll probably do a few more events here and there. But I don't really have any huge goals, and I'm okay with that. I feel good with just having fun in the ocean, and the world's a little bit chaotic right now. So we'll
Sure.
see how travel works out. But I'll probably travel international at some point, maybe Central America, do a little surf trip with the
Oh yeah.
fam.
Nice.
But I
Yeah.
would love to go to Indonesia or
Sure.
somewhere like that,
Yeah.
and just bring the whole fam for like a month or two down there.
Oh yeah. That sounds
And
great.
either way, I just want to kind of be ready for whatever the ocean has to offer. So I
Yeah.
continually stay motivated to take care of myself just so I can feel good in the ocean when the waves are in just good form. And
Yeah.
so, and then I also really want to age well. So as I get older, be able to surf with my
Mhm.
boys, and
Sure.
maybe even one day if I have grandchildren, surf with
Mhm.
them.
Mhm.
So that's kind of my like sights as far as like builds in the
Oh,
long
that sounds like a great plan. And you've mentioned age a couple of times, and I just saw YouTube of Michael Ho at 64, killing it at Pipeline. So
Oh, yeah.
maybe we need to have a seniors tour.
Yeah, and then even like Kelly Slater is 50.
Yeah,
He's
yeah,
wearing the yellow jersey
yeah,
at
yeah,
Sunset, and he just won Pipeline. So that's
yeah. It's
pretty incredible.
amazing.
I definitely find inspiration in those surfers.
Absolutely.
I know if I take care of myself, I'll be able to shred hard once I get older. And I actually have a couple auntie friends that I surf with at home
All
that
right.
are older and former pros, and they just inspire me too. So
Absolutely. What's peak performance mean to you?
I think peak performance is feeling good and being able to perform the best you can when the opportunities arise. And I think that to each our own, like you don't have to compare, I don't have to compare myself to like every other surfer, but more just being where I'm at in whatever season I'm in, being ready to charge and just have fun out there.
Yeah.
And yeah, and just feeling good about yourself and like having just vibrant health and just joy to live life. I think so often we can maybe seem like we have it all together, but if we're not just happy, like whatever performance we pull off won't mean much if we're not full of joy and happiness. So finding our joy in it all.
Amen to that. Yeah, thank you. This was great, Bethany. You look fantastic. You look vibrant and joyful. And I was joking with someone the other day. It's like between you, the Dilbergs, and the other Hamiltons having kids over there in Kauai, it's like these beautiful couples having children. It's like creating this new race of superhumans out of Kauai.
No, I definitely nerd out on my children's health, and I'm like, they're gonna be super healthy, like
totally.
superhumans. I'm like, whoever gets to marry these boys are gonna be lucky young women.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, thanks again for doing this.
Thank you, Jack.
Yeah, thanks.